So, James Gunn's Superman arrives with the weight of a cinematic universe on its back, and the burden of course-correcting a franchise long marooned in tonal whiplash and half-hearted ambition. The film is meant to be the launch pad for a revitalized DC universe, something bold, sincere, and entertaining, and to its credit, it often is. The casting is strong, the aesthetics sort of vibrant, and its intentions heartfelt. But intentions don't make structure, and ambition doesn't always translate to clarity. What emerges is a film that's pleasant and intermittently charming, but one that staggers under its own density, contrivances, and tonal confusion. After a seemingly endless ramp-up, a teaser trailer, a main trailer, a final trailer, 3 10-second clips that felt like second-screen content on social media, I already had an estranged sense of fatigue about this movie going into the cinema. But the real issue was that by the end of the showing, and after a pummeling of visuals and action and plot elements, I felt kind of exhausted stepping out of the cinema. This film is a prime example of what I'm calling DBS filmmaking. Dense in both senses. Think Captain America, Brave New World, Jurassic World Rebirth. Dense as in dumb and meant as popcorn cinema for doofuses, slobs, and the dull-witted masses. And dense as in needlessly thick with arcs, threads, characters, acts, and material, and what seems exasperatingly to be the worst of both approaches. I think the idea is to shove so much stuff at low-input viewers that they get bamboozled into just assuming the film knows what it's doing, and to just enjoy it on the level of flickering, fast-paced action and janky humor. If this is the prevailing market formula that corporate studio analytics has collated and spat out of its software, then God have mercy on all of us. To start with the good, David Corenswet is well cast. He brings a grounded, sincere quality to Clark that echoes the warmth of Christopher Reeve. It's a Superman less interested in brooding messianism than in the quiet human details of heroism. And yet, for a character of such mythical gravitas, this Superman is far too often sidelined. He gets beaten up a lot. He is saved as often as he saves, and the film denies the audience that soaring, cathartic elation of watching Superman truly unleashes power and save the day. He's aided by Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane, who is refreshingly not written as a girl boss archetype, but rather as a capable, pleasant, slightly dry-witted partner. More than that, Lois genuinely drives the story forward with her investigative skills, digging into Luthor's schemes and unearthing the wider geopolitical tensions at play. Their chemistry is easy, never strained. Lois gets her own moments of heroism, but remains within the emotional frame of the story, not outside it shouting for relevance. Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, by contrast, is a more muddled affair. Holt is always watchable, lean, menacing, with a surface charm, but this Lex is kind of generic. Too corporate to be magnetic, and too cartoonishly conspiratorial to be all that credible. His scheme, a sprawling misinformation campaign against Superman, wrapped in geopolitical chaos and multiversal engineering, is so convoluted it requires other characters to narrate it, just so we can keep up. Worse, he's too emotionally demonstrative and histrionic, rather than the calculating shyster magnate the character is best suited to being. It's hard to fear a villain whose plan seems less diabolical than needlessly complex. Krypto the Superdog is here too, and ironically he's one of the better executed side elements. He is a dog. He flies. He occasionally mauls henchmen. Gunn clearly enjoys writing him, and the CG team treats him with respect. Krypto gets some of the film's most crowd-pleasing moments, even if at the film's climax his sudden appearance undercuts what little emotional authenticity had been building. But by the second act, the film buckles under the sheer weight of its ensemble. There are simply too many characters, and not enough room. We're introduced to the Justice Gang, Mr. Terrific, and others, and while each gets a moment, they receive no meaningful explanation for their presence. They're just there because they're there. Several subplots feel stitched in from another movie entirely. The movie is trying to do far too much, far too quickly, and not very coherently. It's overplotted. Events occur without sufficient cause. Major emotional turns are glossed over. The entire war subplot is vaguely defined and largely off-screen, yet is treated as world-changing. Superman himself is often reactive rather than active, buffeted by events rather than driving them. He's sent on errands, knocked out, imprisoned, or manipulated, while the plot careens forward with little anchoring through line. In fact, the action often drives the story rather than the story driving the action. Scenes are strung together around escalating conflict rather than dramatic logic. The result can be exhausting.
It really puts perspective on things, doesn't it?
Not too much. There's too much fucking perspective, man.
This wouldn't be so frustrating if the film were content to be absurdist or satirical, but Gunn wants emotional sincerity and irreverent weirdness and action spectacle. The result is a tonal schizophrenia that jars more than it charms. Gunn's signature humor style is fully on display. Meta quips, gonzo visuals, weird character flourishes, and a relentless sense of off-kilter fun. At times, it works. The film has moments of surprising levity and eccentricity, but in many instances, especially during climactic sequences, the humor undercuts the stakes. Emotional beats are frequently interrupted by goofy asides. There's a sense that the film doesn't trust the audience to sit with sincerity for more than a few seconds. We're never far from a gag, a pratfall, or a CGI monkey joke. This Marvel-esque tone, fast, glib, relentless, isn't inherently bad, but it's badly used here. There's a difference between humor as seasoning and humor as a main course. And it's not just the volume of the humor, it's the texture. Much of it's artificial, rapid-fire banter that hollows out any chance at emotional authenticity. Much was made pre-release of Gunn's insistence that Superman be reframed, apparently or supposedly, as an immigrant story. Superman wrestles with public trust and the narrative plays with themes of misinformation and othering, but the film doesn't wear any cultural subtext on its sleeve. The conversation surrounding that exploded far beyond what was warranted by the actual content. In a piece co-written by Mark Malkin and Jack Dunn, Variety ran the following clickbaity headline: James Gunn, Nathan Fillion, and more on MAGA outrage over director saying Superman is an immigrant. I don't have anything to say to anybody, spreading hate. This was a load of old toss by Malkin, a Hollywood hack of the most venal and tawdry variety, who has a long history of asking identity-driven questions on red carpets to bait celebrities into culture war statements for clicks. Gunn, approached by Malkin at the main press junket for the film, did not say anything about spreading hate. In fact, he didn't make any political statement at all. He barely even acknowledged the question. But we live in the worst timeline. So 1,000 media outlets, blogs, videos, and cable news broadcasts chewed the disingenuous nonsense over for a febrile couple of news cycles until everyone calmed down.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
The film's supposed culture war commentary is largely overstated, both by those hoping to find it and by those hoping to be outraged by it. Yes, it gestures towards a metaphorical immigrant experience, but as with many elements in the film, it never digs deep. It's symbolism without narrative weight. The political content sort of exists if you go looking for it, but it's not developed enough to merit either praise or outrage. All of this raises the uncomfortable question: is this really the future of DC? Gunn, after his success with Guardians and the Suicide Squad, was tabbed as the new architect of the DC cinematic universe. But this outing does little to justify that faith. Superman is a decent, standalone film with franchise ambitions it hasn't really earned. It does not feel like a cornerstone, it feels like a flashy, confused pilot for a show that hasn't yet found its tone. The intent is clearly to inject brightness, sincerity, and modern sensibility into the DCU. But you can't build a cinematic universe on intent. You need discipline, coherence, and thematic weight. This film, for all its charms, kinda lacks all three. Superman is a likable mess. It's not a disaster, and certainly not a joyless dirge in the vein of past DC misfires. It's funny, bright, earnest, and intermittently exciting. But it's also overstuffed, structurally chaotic, and tonally dissonant. And its titular hero, for all his charisma, is largely reduced to reacting to an overly complicated plot. Even the CGI often feels rushed and flat. If you go in with modest expectations, you'll likely enjoy the performances, laugh at the absurdity, and appreciate the tonal swing away from Snyderian gloom. But if you're hoping for a franchise reset or a bold new era of Superman, you may leave wondering where exactly all of this is meant to be going. Go see it if you missed heartfelt superhero stories and enjoy bright, hopeful colors in your action, you're here for Corin Sweat's take, or Gunn's quirky humor. You can forgive a bloated canvas in exchange for earnest themes and dog sidekick antics. Maybe skip it if you wanted a tight plot, razor-sharp pacing, and a villain who drives the conflict. You dislike tonal whiplash, you expect a confident franchise reset rather than a risky plot. The film signals that Gunn aims to build a more optimistic DC universe, but his style isn't a magic wand. For upcoming sequels, the story needs focus, cohesion, and a Superman who commands his tale, not just moves through it. Superman is pleasant, it's appealing, it's charmingly weird, but it's sometimes boring. It's also dense, sprawling, and often drowns Superman's heart in its own ambition. To reboot a universe, James Gunn didn't need to be the guy with the magic franchise touch. He just needed to make a Superman movie that believed in Superman again. And perhaps that's the issue. From a Superman film, people want some genuine wonder. This gets there for a few moments, but in the end, it barely takes off. By the way, just before I go, you can now find me over on Substack, where, in addition to my spluttering ramblings on popular culture, you can also find a plethora of articles on politics, society, and the wider world. But don't worry, my signature tone of disagreeable, curmudgeonly cynicism, with occasional bright spots of misguided optimism, perhaps because I was born foolish, abides there as well. If you think you'd like to sign up for a free subscription, it would really help out a lot. The link is in the description.